Hey everybody, it's Haley Hobson, and I'm very excited that I have my friend and another presidential diamond on the call with us tonight, Jessica Moultrie. I feel a little special alliance to Jessica because we both went Blue Diamond. Didn't we both go Blue Diamond like the same month, Jessica?
Yes, same month.
Yeah, that was like a year and a half ago. So we were in the same, I call it class. And we're going to talk to you guys about today's placement strategy. I know this is like a really hot topic. Everybody enrolls people and they don't know what to do with these people. And then there's all this stress around, I don't know what to do with them, or am I going to put them in the wrong place? Or do I have to have people that are placeholders in place? Or do I build under a builder? There's a zillion questions that people ask. So today, Jessica and myself are actually going to walk you guys through all of that. And I really feel like you're in awesome hands because Jessica is amazing. So thank you, Jessica, so much for coming on board with us tonight. I know you're super busy yourself and you've got your own team. So it's really, really, I'm so grateful and just such an asset for you to come on board and help us with my team.
Of course, I love it. I'm excited to go alongside you. Yeah, I was in your class for only a month, and then you just wanted to leave my class and graduate, and I don't understand why. But that's okay. I like it.
Yeah, you're gonna catch up.
That's
All
right.
right. So, Jessica, why don't you talk to everybody a little bit about what do we do with this volume when it comes in? How do we get to these ranks on the left, diamond, blue diamond, presidential diamond? Because they're so contingent upon how we place.
Absolutely. And in fact, when I looked at this business and I kind of started this business, I wanted to be able to do things in the most efficient way possible. And as soon as I saw the compensation plan and recognized kind of my own immediate goals, which were pretty small, and those continue to grow, but every single piece of those became more a reality faster as long as I added strategy along with the blood, sweat, and tears I was investing in my business, because I wanted to make sure I could capitalize as much as possible on all the energy I was investing into my business. And I really feel like being able to have, a little bit of knowledge as a baseline, not just trying to figure everything out as you go, but trying to have that baseline of knowledge as you're approached and you come into these situations, it just helps you to make a better educated guess. So if we move to the next slide, Haley.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And before we move to the next slide, I want to say that, when I was building my business in the beginning, I really remember this specifically when I was hitting the ranks of silver and gold and platinum. I didn't know anything about placement in the beginning, but I understood the power of three. And so I went initially, and we'll talk to you guys whether to build for power of three or build for rank. We'll talk to you about that. But I originally started to build with that structure. And I honestly do believe that because I built a specific way with a specific structure, that is why my progress was so fast. So it gets crazy, right?
It does. I mean, one of the things that I think we all just have to accept for 1 second before we even get into this is that nothing can be perfect, okay? We're never going to have the exact perfect scenario that we want, because things that happen in our business, some people are going to surprise us, right? Things we gathered as much information as we could, but then people surprise us. I'm sure the person that, where Haley is organized in her organization, people wish she was in a different spot, okay? So we have to just understand that we're going to have some mistakes, but we just need to let those work for us as well.
I agree. And I think that, one of the things that people ask me all the time is how can I change the mistake that I've already made? And I actually was the very same way in the beginning. I thought, oh no, I put this person in the wrong spot. They're not doing anything. There's all these great people underneath of them. Or I've put somebody in this crucial spot and they're kicking it, but they're lower than they need to. How can I move everything around and fix it? And I just want to say that I've gotten all the way up to the rank that I'm at with a structure that had mistakes, just as many mistakes as other people. So I just want to reiterate that, yes, nothing is perfect.
Absolutely. So when you say that, this kind of dictates a little bit of my experience and things I know that people wonder, right? Oh, I know you put people under me, but I can't support them, right? You have a leader where you place people under them, and now they're like, well, you know what? I just can't really do anything. There are people in our organization that they promised they were going to commit to that LRP, but now they're like, you know what? I just can't do that anymore. Or people who, all of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm ready. I want to do this business now. And they're all the way down on my 4th level, because they decided that later on in the process. Or even people who, we thought wanted to do the business, but now they're just saying they're too busy to do it. So just like you said, Haley, these kind of things have happened to every top leader in doTERRA. I don't know one person who hasn't experienced this.
Every one of us.
Every single one. So if you've had these things happen and you think it's going to control the outcome of where you're going, just let that go, because it's just not true.
Yeah, it's totally not true. And the thing is that your organization is always going to be in flux. It's always going to be in a different structure. So even somebody who is kicking it right now, amazing, you're awesome, most awesomest builder, people go through tragedies, crises in their life, where all of a sudden somebody who you thought was the most amazing person steps back. So everything's always going to be in fluctuation. You do the best that you can with the choices that you have to make at the time, and you're not alone.
That's right. And you know what? From time to time, you might feel like this. And, we're going to try during this presentation to help those experiences be less and less. And that's the goal of this, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I don't want to dishearten everybody, but I kind of feel like this for a minute every day. Right? There's a phone call that I get, or an email that I get, or a text message where I want to blow my head out every single day. And I take a deep breath and then move on and know that everyone else is sort of like that, right?
Exactly. And I think the key thing you said there is you move on. You don't let that dictate the rest of what you do. You move on past it. You don't get hung up on that and let it dictate what you're going to do the rest of the day or month or whatever, I think that's the key word there.
Yeah, okay. I've had situations where I feel where people have told me that they're quitting and they're in this key spot, or I think I'm totally dependent on them. And then, you think that your life is over. You feel like your whole organization is falling apart, and then boom, you have a different mindset and you can move on.
Absolutely. So for those of you who may be kind of newer into this process, I just want to go through the meaning of some key terms when we talk about enroller versus sponsor. So let's go through what enroller is. So here, the enroller is the person who brought in the new wellness advocate. If you are the enroller of someone, you have the greatest responsibility and ownership of that person to help them be successful. And I think that's really important for all of us to understand. No matter where someone is placed in your organization, if you enrolled them, you hold that greatest responsibility. You're also the person who receives fast start bonus, the 20% on that person, because you hold that enrollership, as well as other bonuses. And as enroller of this particular individual, you can use that to count for rank advancement. Now, when we look at, oh, go ahead. You want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, when we look at enrollership, a lot of people who enroll somebody, they have to, after they've enrolled their first 3 or 4 people, they have to start placing them under other people, right? Mm-hmm. And so then there becomes that whole dialogue which goes like this. Well, since you put them underneath of me, but they're not enrolled to me, you're still responsible, right? Or why should I work with them when they're still enrolled to you, right?
Exactly. However, right? However, wait, go back, Haley, really quick. Go back to that other, if you do one more click, it should bring up another set of sponsored, does it not?
Oh, okay, gotcha. There.
So the sponsor, just to help identify this is the person directly above the enrollee on the graphic tree. So it's kind of like if you looked at your family tree, it's like your parent right above you. This person is responsible for supporting the efforts underneath, because you are compensated on this individual, whether you hold enrollership or not, and everything that happens below them in their organization. You get Power 3 bonus, you get unilevel bonus. So you're going to want to be invested as the sponsor of someone in an organization. So if we look at the next slide, it's going to really go more in detail about this. So we have a lot of people just like Haley was kind of saying, oh, well, I didn't enroll them. So, it's really not my responsibility to do anything. And if you're looking at it that way, you're probably seeing a lot of scarcity happening in your business because you're not wanting to run. If someone were to give me an individual in my organization, let's say my upline enrolled someone and they placed it in my organization, I would look at that as one of the greatest gifts ever. And I would appreciate it. And I would do everything possible to try to build a relationship with that individual. And, that didn't really happen for me. Okay. So if you've been given someone in your organization, that is a gift. Okay. The expectations of a sponsor are, you need to provide support, just like I mentioned, because you receive Power 3 and Unilevel. So this is really helping to grow what your monthly check is looking like. Okay. And guess what? You can dictate what that looks like based on how big this individual gets in their organization. That's going to grow your Unilevel bonus. So here, if you look at the second piece of this, and this is huge, okay? You should never expect to be given people. You should think only about working hard to be finding people to bring into your own organization. Top leaders in this company continue to personally enroll, always. Okay. And they never expect something to be given to them. When you look
I also don't think that most top enrollers in the company actually were so good right from the beginning that they actually weren't given anybody. Like the person above them, the person above them who was their possibly enroller or sponsor had to quote unquote work on their other legs because this person was blooming by themselves. So I think it's like you just said, Jessica, I think it's a great gift to have somebody placed underneath of you if it happens. I consider every single person in my organization a gift because I did not enroll all of them. They were placed by other people, right, that are underneath of me. But I was never given anybody by my original enroller, so I have no expectations. But I also think that you guys need to get out there and concentrate on building your own businesses, because when you are doing the enrolling yourself, the relationship is tighter and the expectations are more clear. And when somebody is put in your organization, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the person that was put there takes off and you build a relationship quickly, and that's an awesome gift of amazing Unilevel. I know I've put people in certain organizations that are making hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars on Unilevel because of those quote unquote gifts. But on the other hand, if the relation doesn't take off because that person didn't have that original relationship, it's harder to build your team because you need those relationships when you're building.
And I'll say this too, that I look at the people, in my organization that I brought in even directly underneath me. And I will tell you that I'm so thankful that I brought those people in because I worked so closely with them. And some of the best relationships in my life that are so fulfilling for me come from the relationships I have with these people. And it makes it even more precious when you see their lives start changing and you have that relationship and you know that you're a little piece of that, right? And so I just, for me, I'm so thankful that I got to pick and choose who I wanted to partner with in this business or who I wanted to help change the trajectory of their health. That's important to me. And so I think it's important that we really focus on thinking about it that way.
Exactly. So remember, you guys, that if somebody is placed in your organization and you don't give support to that person, the person who placed them will probably not want to give you another gift. Right,
Absolutely.
Jessica?
I mean, I really operate that way because I take seriously the people that I bring into doTERRA, that I enroll. And so if I had a conversation, because I have conversations before I place people, and if I said to, Susie, hey, Susie, I've got this amazing person, Sharon, that I've enrolled and I'd love to place her in your organization. If that happens, how can you show up and support? Are you willing to start trying to work for me to merge a relationship there? And I have those kinds of conversations. And if Susie says to me, absolutely, Jessica, I will do that, and then she never shows up and never does the things that she told me she'd do, then I will never place anyone there again. And that's just
Yeah,
a
I mean,
rule that I give myself.
yeah, and the other thing is as the organizations get bigger, like in the places that Jessica and I are in right now, we need our teams to support us, because there are so many things that go on outside the normal of I'm going to make my 2 contacts a day, I'm going to follow up a day, I'm going to do membership overviews. There's so much more that goes on. So when I bring a new person in, I have to have support from somebody else. And if I don't think I'm going to get it, there's no way I can put somebody there. When I look at, okay, which of my legs need more volume, because that's one of the questions you're going to have to ask yourself. We're going to go through that in a minute. It's usually the first thing. Where do I need volume myself to continue to grow? You also have to ask that question, where is the enrollee going to grow best? Meaning, where are they going to be best supported?
That's right. And I think these questions that we're going to put up here are really good to ask yourself. Because I remember in the beginning when I started this, I just wanted to make the most money in the shortest period possible. You know, I was trying to get out of my current situation in my life sucking job. So for me, I was like, how can I move fastest? And I made a lot of mistakes because I thought only about the current moment. And I will tell you that, you know, those mistakes, they all, you know, of course, like now we're telling you, you can avoid those things. If you will think a little bit past just the current moment and avoid placement just for rank or power 3 and try to think long-term by going through these questions when you have a new enrollee. Just like you said, where is this new enrollee going to grow best? Because you know what? That's how your team is going to develop more. That's how in the long run, and even maybe in the short run, how you're going to see more inflow of income, because people are going to be in a situation where they can thrive in an area better. Do they have relationships on my team? Is there somebody I'm enrolling and they already have a pre-existing relationship with a leader who is doing well in my organization, or who I know is working hard and could use an extra boost? Right? And I know that them working together will be a positive experience. There's other questions. Do you want to add in?
Yeah. I mean, I think like what we just talked about, where is that person going to grow? Where are they going to have, like, I like to call it a double or a triple layer of support. Yes, I enrolled them. I'm always going to be their parent. But when I place them underneath of somebody, that person's going to be their rah-rah cheerleader. That person's going to tell them, hey, don't forget about Haley and Jessica's webinar tonight, right? They're going to be that person that's, hey, did you get your convention ticket? They're going to be that person that's also doing a mentoring call with them. So where is that person going to get information from? Not only me, because I'm going to get busier and busier and busier, but also the person that's directly above them. And another thing that we look at that Jessica talked about is what kind of relationships. And that could be something like geography, right? It could be like, I'm enrolling somebody locally. I probably want to put them locally in a team together. Now, does that mean that every person has to be on the same local team? No, of course not. Does it mean that if I enroll somebody in France and now I'm going to enroll somebody in Ireland just because they're both in Europe, they need to be on the same team? No, that's like saying that somebody in New York has to be on the same team as somebody in Phoenix, Arizona, right? But more of the question is who will they work with best? What kind of personalities are going on in that dynamic? Where is going to be the best fit for them to thrive? Is there a leader that has a similar pattern, a similar life, similar belief system that will help support them where they are? And again, like I talked about before, a shared network. And this is what Jessica talked about earlier. You want to have a leader that has a similar building style or commitment, right? In an ideal situation, and sometimes we don't have ideal situations, and we'll talk about that. Sometimes you do have to place. You're new, you're just starting. You talk to the person on your front line. They're really not ready to start yet, but you think that maybe they will. You're hoping they will. You think that maybe helping support them by putting some people underneath them in the beginning could be a good idea. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if there's a similar type of building style and commitment between those two people, similar type of lifestyle, you have a better chance of that working. And, you know, Jessica mentioned earlier before, having that clear conversation. Move somebody, but during that 14-day period, I am really having multiple conversations with the person who's going to be moved, several emails, text messages, asking how they're doing, whether they got their product, getting a feel of how much time that they can commit, whether they're just going to be a product user, whether they want to share it, whether they signed up to share it, but now thinking maybe that they're going to build, maybe they signed up to use the product and now they actually want to share the product. So I'm having multiple conversations with that person to get an idea of where they're going to be the best fit. And at the same time, I keep my eyes on my organization, on my back office, on my team button, on my genealogy, all the time during that 14 period, going, where is going to be the best fit for them? And for me, I'm usually looking at first, where do I need more volume? Unless there's like a clear indication, like I've got a leader in Indianapolis and she's in Indianapolis.
Hey, Haley, you're cutting out some.
What?
I say you're cutting out a little bit, just so you know.
Yeah. So what I was saying was it could be totally crystal clear where I have a leader in Indianapolis, I sign up somebody in Indianapolis, and I know that they're going to get better support away from me, since they're away from me, with somebody who's close to me. But if I don't have that clear, easy decision, then usually the first thing I'm looking at is, where do I need volume? Do I have a silver that's holding my platinum that's holding me at my rank? Is there somebody underneath that silver that has a weaker leg? And then in that weaker leg, is there somebody that can support them? If not, I'm going to be responsible, which is fine, but it's just more work on my part. So you really have to ask yourself all of these questions. Where do I need volume? Where are they going to be best supported? What kind of relationship do they maybe already have with somebody on my team? Who will they work with best? Is there a leader that has the same lifestyle, a shared network, a similar building commitment? And then you want to have clear conversations with both parties. Is there anything that you want to add on that, Jessica?
One thing you said I think is really important to pay even more attention to, and that is if you put it in a place where you know there's not an area of support, that you don't get frustrated and blame anyone that they're not supporting if they haven't committed to that, that you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to put it there and I'm just going to take over ownership of that and work with it. You know what I mean? I think that's huge. If you decide to make that choice, if you go through here and you really don't see that there's a clear place, so you do what's best for your own goals, and you know that there's probably not going to be anybody that's helping, that you say to yourself, that's okay, I'm just going to take ownership of it, and you own that.
And there are times, especially as you get bigger in your organization, where you're going to have to do that. There's clearly pockets somewhere that's not growing and you need it to grow, and you don't want to start over and lose what's already been partially built. So you will put somebody who you think is going to be a decent builder, a share, to sort of, even though they might be on your third or fourth or even fifth level or lower, you know that that person is going to be the new person you're going to work with that's going to bring that leg alive. And you're not going to depend on anybody else above them. You're just going to depend on yourself, and you're going to be okay with that. And like I personally, I mean, I have helped family members build their legs who are not the most ideal builders. Tip from me, don't build from family. But because of that, I've had to now go back and sort of rebuild with newer people. That would I have rather start over? Maybe, but probably not, because it's starting over. And I've just had to place newer people who are not going to get the support that they want from anybody else. So it's going to be up to me. And when they ask me, who's the person I'm going to be working with? I say me.
That's right.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the principles, like some of the must-dos or no-nos when we're enrolling people. Some people have asked me the question before, Jessica, can I just have a whole long line of users? Should I just place users under users? And I know that this is different. Different leaders teach different things. I personally only place new wellness advocates under people who will support, period, the end of conversation for me. Like even if there's a wellness advocate that's ordering monthly but not the best level of support, I still would prefer to put a person there than under somebody who's not on LRP, who has no interest in building. I will never build under somebody who hasn't at least told me they want to build, even if they're not building.
Absolutely. And what I think here is we've got people in our organization that are working so hard, right? And we have people who really need this business to work for them and want it to work for them. So why in the world would you just stack users? Don't do it. Place people under builders, okay? If you don't have any builders yet, then guess what? That's what you need to focus on. You need to go and figure out who you want to work with and figure out how to talk to them. Bring your upline in. Start identifying those builders. When I started, I knew my business couldn't go anywhere very rapidly until I identified at least one builder, at least one, right? So we try to find one, and when we have one, we start working with them, right? And then we find another, and then we start working with them. You don't have to have 3 to 6 builders to start enrolling.
Now, one thing I want to add on to that, though, I just want to say a caveat to that. Now, Jessica does not mean keep throwing people on your front line until you find a builder.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have a bunch of users, you might be kind of stuck, so to speak, and keep them on your front line. But if you have somebody who says they want to build, but they're not actively engaging the way you want to at first, hold their hand, nourish them, give them support. And if you get somebody else, build with them. That's what happened to me in the beginning. I helped my original whole front line and even second level with all of their enrollerships because nobody was enrolling as fast as I was enrolling back then. And what it did for me, the good thing was it gave people a vision that the business could actually be built. And even though they weren't running off the ground as fast as I was, they had their power of 3 quicker. They started to get a little paycheck. They started to see it was a real business, and it motivated them to make the commitment themselves. And they also saw how committed I was to them. So I don't want you guys to build under people who tell you they don't want to build, but I do want you to consider not starting over every time you see somebody that enrolls and then they don't take off the first week or the first month. If they say they want to build, work with them and help them by placing people underneath of them. Okay. Another thing that, I want you to talk about more, Jessica, is keeping enrollership. There's all different theories on enrollership. Some people give enrollership over immediately to somebody above them because they want that person making money. I think that a lot of the leaders did that in the beginning and then learned the lesson the hard way that we really want to keep enrollership until it makes sense to all parties to transfer, right?
Absolutely. I think enrollership it's a precious thing, right? And, you never, for me, I'm never wanting to give up enrollership of a person that I think is going to bypass or that is bypassing the person above them. Okay. So, one of the things that's important is, obviously I will give up enrollership if I feel like that person has earned it, right? And it helps me to progress in my rank. But I really think it is important that we don't just throw around enrollership, that we have people earn that enrollership. And everybody has what those characteristics are, that when it makes sense to give over enrollership. But for me, my characteristics are the people that I'm handing it over to are working their butt off. They've connected with this person. They're showing up with this person. And this person is not outranking them.
Exactly. I have the same theory. If I have somebody that I think will even match the person, I usually like to hold on to enrollership because in my opinion, watching how legs can collapse later on, my opinion is it's not a bad idea to have a backup, and not just have to rely only on that one qualifier. But anyway, you definitely want to keep the enrollership. You can talk to your upline about when the right time is to give that up. And you also want to keep builders closer to your front line. So for instance, if you have a builder, the ideal spot for them is not your 7th level. Your front line might be taken, and maybe even your second line might be taken because you're trying to build for like a gold rank or a platinum rank and you don't want to start a whole new leg yet. But you could enroll people on your 3rd level, you could enroll people on your 4th level. And guess what? We have this new exception, well, not so new anymore, that if somebody goes premier within 90 days, you can actually pull them out and place them back on your front line with the committee's permission. So again, you can talk to your upline enroller or sponsor who knows more about this when the time is right, but don't stress out about putting somebody who could be awesome on a lower level, because if they're really gonna be that awesome, you can move them later. And you can talk to the person who you put them underneath and just say something like, hey, look, I'm putting this person underneath of you and they might turn out to be amazing. And I just want you to recognize that they're not gonna be there forever necessarily. They're going to help you with volume this month, but if they do hit Premier within 90 days, I will probably be moving them off of your organization and onto my front line. Just be really clear.
Yeah, I have some good verbiage with that particular move in just a minute.
Yeah. Okay, great. So it doesn't matter what level people on. Your enrollee can really be anywhere in a leg to qualify you for advancement, but you just cannot, you only have to have one per leg. Like I have qualifying legs that are qualifying me for my rank on my first level, on my second level, on my third level. And then I even have people that are popping up on lower fourth, fifth, sixth levels that if, God forbid, something happened to one of my leg leaders, there would be another alternative on a lower level. So there's nothing wrong with, I know people who have qualifying leaders on their fifth, sixth, and seventh level. Ideally, to get paid for the unilevel of that whole organization, you want them closer, but don't stress out if they're not up there.
And for me personally, I don't place anywhere below my fourth level. So that's just my own personal place of where I am, you know. I think
I have a general the same strategy, except sometimes my qualifying leg has ended up on my third level.
Right, so that's different.
You have to build from 3 to 4 levels from that, so they end up on your fifth or sixth level. So anyway, do you want to keep going?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this one I think is so, it's probably the most important. Is just that you build your business with integrity. Always honor people who initiated the contact. If it's somebody else's enrollment, don't take it, right? Be that person who builds with integrity, the person, you know, that's committed to give support and the desire of where somebody wants to be. If I'm working with someone and they call me, let's say I have their enrollment, and they call me and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize my sister is doing this as a business. She's in a different organization. Am I going to fight them to keep them on my team? I'm not. I want people to be where they want to be. And you know what? When people come into my team, they know I'm building with integrity. They know that they can trust me. They can trust the things I'm doing. They can trust sending their people to me. Other people know they can trust sending people to me, and that they will be put in the place with the person who initiated that contact that's really working with them to connect them to these classes and things. We just want to do what's right, because I'll promise you it's going to come back around. It's going to come back around, and you're always going to want to make sure that you have been honest and that you've done things the right way for all parties involved.
Agreed on that one. So the next one, you guys want to think long-term and don't just place for power of 3. If you're placing for power of 3, you're going to end up with a user or a sharer in that little triangle. And that user or sharer is going to 1 month not order. And if that user or sharer 1 month that doesn't order, then that whole power of 3 falls apart. So you want to think about the power of 3 template being committed people. You could have a 4th or a 5th alongside of that 3 on each level, but think of the people in that little power of 3 triangle as all being your builders or wannabe builders, so that the power of 3 template doesn't collapse and fall down in the long term.
I love this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is really important. I always say to people, I can't build your business more than you want to build your business. What do you say?
Exactly that. I'm like, I can't enroll more people on your team than you're enrolling. I can't support more people on your team than you're supporting, you know, and just because our goals are maybe higher than the people we're working with, if we are always enabling them and doing everything for their business, they're never going to develop the skill sets necessary to get their business to that level. If we give them all their builders, they're never going to have the confidence to know how to find a builder, how to identify that, how to have those conversations, right? If we go teach every class for someone, they're never going to learn how to teach a class, right? And then when they bring people in, they're not going to be able to teach them how to teach a class. So we personally have to develop these skill sets, and we can't do more for people, or it stunts their growth. They can't ever grow and develop because we keep getting in the way.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about the comp plan a little bit, Jessica. My team has heard me do webinars on the comp plan before, and I want to hear your perspective of how we reward people, how we identify leaders, and how to set expectations of who exactly you want on your front line.
So for me personally, I love the way our comp plan is designed, because in general in network marketing, I think most companies have it designed in a way that rewards top performers. It's going to reward the people that are working the hardest. It's going to reward people that are out there serving their teams and giving support, and people that are really showing up in their business. So if you feel frustrated by what your income looks like, know that if you continue to show up as a leader, doing the most important business building activities consistently, time and time and time again, the money is going to come. Okay. And when I look at, okay, who do I want to bring into this business? Who do I want to work with? I want to work with people that are going to be leaders. When I look in their life, are they showing up as a leader in their own life? Are they showing up as a leader within their families, within maybe a current business setting that they're in? Are they mission driven? Are they, when they say they're going to do something, do they follow through? For me personally, I feel like I can be in a room, and I know you feel this way too, Haley. I mean, I'm just guessing, but I can be in a room with people in a class, and I know exactly who I need to go talk to after the class, just based on how they acted in the class. Even if I don't know them, I can tell how people's body language is, the questions they're asking, the conversations that we have. It's very rare that somebody falls outside. Now, do those anomalies happen? Of course. But I'll tell you that paying attention to those little things, those qualities of a leader, you can tell by the way people act, their attitude, their questions, the way they talk, the way they present themselves, and how they're showing up in other areas of their life.
I agree. I think the main thing that we always like to emphasize, you guys, is work with the people who want to work with you. I know that I've gotten caught up, sometimes we all have, in trying to chase people down that are not doing anything and try to reactivate their motivation, their enthusiasm. Sometimes we feel like that's going to be easier. Sometimes people are stuck, and maybe there are going to be some changes that you can help them make. But the bottom line is it's going to be easier to work with somebody who wants to work with you. So keep bringing fresh blood in, keep enrolling new people, and work with the people that are excited to be working with you. You guys who are building businesses, you're awesome. This is an amazing career to have. And the people that are coming on board should want to be blessed by your mentorship. And if they're not taking it from you, if they're doing the opposite that you're asking them to do, if they're not getting on calls with you, if they're not showing up at meetings, if they're not getting on your Facebook forums, sometimes it's just not worth it. You let go and you move on.
Hey, Haley, one of the things while we were in Vegas this weekend that I loved her say is one of the women that spoke talked about working with someone new. And she talked about how she called them and they said they wanted to do this and this. And so she set up a time in her planner to connect with that person individually. And they didn't show up. And so she called them, hey, what happened? Maybe there was an emergency, something happened. So they set up another time. No, I just didn't get around to it, but I'm going to do it now. So they set up a second time to interact where she keeps this individual on her books to connect with them one-on-one. And then they don't show up again. And so her response was to connect them into the group training. So they had lost the ability to have that individual time with her, the individual interaction to help her really help them launch their business. And she connected them into the group trainings because they, by their actions, by how they've shown up, differentiated themselves and took themselves out of that personal time and mentoring into the group mentoring. And I think that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, and just on the opposite end of the spectrum, somebody who's lower down in your organization, maybe not even enrolled to you, but reaching out and wanting to know all of the things that they need to know and really making an effort might be somebody worth investing your time in.
Absolutely. You want to run with the people who want to run, because otherwise you will not enjoy this business. It will feel like it's sucking you dry. If you feel like you're being sucked dry by people, you're going to get burned out.
Yeah, and that's what this next slide is really about, you guys. There's going to be builders that end up being placed somehow underneath of non-builders just because we don't know what people are going to do when they first enroll. And what do? How do you handle it? You taproot. You work with those people that want to work with you, because as other people have said before, the energy that comes from below can actually ignite the fire of people above. And I believe that's actually happened in the organization. Well, I don't believe, I know, because that's what the people above me told me, is when I came on board and built a team, there were 7, 8 levels of people that weren't doing much above me, and all of a sudden, a lot of them got ignited. So that is called tap rooting. And my diamond mentor at the time, who was 8 levels above me, who did not enroll me, tap rooted all the way down when he saw this volume coming up. And I believe that that helped me, give me the stimulation, the motivation, the courage, and the excitement to go ahead and move forward, knowing that somebody was invested in me, somebody saw my potential, somebody saw the success that was happening. He tap rooted and it worked. And I do the same thing with people in my organization. When I see somebody who's actively participating in the Facebook forums, chatting it up a lot, making comments, reaching out, and their name is popping up on top enroller over and over again, or one of the top enrollers, or their rank advancing quickly, I'm always out there making sure I know exactly who that person is. All right, so Jessica, let's talk about getting people started.
So for me, I believe the first 90 days that somebody, from the moment somebody says, I want to build this business, the first 90 days is critical. It is critical. We, as their enroller, along with whoever they're sponsored under, if they're in a different location, need to team up to get this person making what I refer to as like the golden number, which is $500 a month by the end of 90 days. Because we need to build belief. We need to build belief around this company. We need to build belief around their ability to do this business and to make a difference. We need to build belief in the ability for them to feel supported and to know that they're not by themselves as they're trying to learn all of what it takes to be successful. And I personally feel like we have to get into motion immediately. We got to get classes. We got to do as much as we can in a short period of time to really get people moving.
Exactly. So we do, and we help them as much as we can. And just for you guys who are on my team, you know, we have our 30-day to elite program we run every couple of months. We've got other leaders on our team that do other programs that they like to help people move along right away. So make sure that you're taking part in those kinds of things, and you're helping your team get involved as well. And that way, you know that people are running from the ground. They're seeing that success. They're getting that paycheck, and what they're doing is actually working. Okay, another way that you know that somebody is ready is when you see them doing things independently by themselves. Like I remember calling somebody when I got back from Europe about 1.5 years ago, and she was brand new, and I was kind of worried that I hadn't checked in. I was like, hey, how's it going? What have you done so far? She's like, well, I got on our team website and I've gone through all of the videos, and I've gone through your entire welcome package, and I've gotten into every Facebook forum, and I'm reading it every single day, and I've planned my first class. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like that
I love people like that.
I know. I love people like that too. So when you see somebody that's like that, that's making decisions and getting out there and doing things by themselves, that is somebody you want to run with.
And I also think that each team, just like you have your own getting started way, you know, for us, we have ours on Essential Wellness Pros, but you need to tap people in, print off a sheet, give it to them of exactly what they need to do. They need to have an exact plan so that that plan can be duplicated when they find someone new. Duplication is the key. So you have to make sure your plan's written down and that it's simple enough for anybody to pick it up and be able to follow it.
Exactly. Okay, so you guys, there are some options that can happen if you've made what you consider mistakes in your organization. And I don't want you to start looking through your organization right now and see how many of them you can use at once, because they are sort of what we call exceptions to the rule. And if you start abusing them, then when you really need them, you won't be able to use them. But we're going to very quickly run through them all, just so you know the options exist. And then when it's time, you can see if it's applicable for you. The first one I pretty much already talked about. It's the 90-day Premier move. When somebody goes Premier in their first 90 days, you can move them out of the spot you initially put them in. And Jessica, you said you used some good verbiage on this. So what would you say?
Yeah, let's actually go to the next slide, because we'll go through these individually and we'll just go quickly through them. This is the only one that I think merits just a couple of more minutes, because Premier is a huge rank. It requires structure. It means people are really focusing on finding leaders. And for me, for anybody to go in a key area in my organization, I want to see how they're going to show up in 90 days. So I put them in a place where I need volume, and I let the person know that I place them under, you know, hey, listen, I'm going to place this individual here. They act like they're really interested in building. And, if they hit Premier in 90 days, they may possibly get moved out of your organization. So it at least buys you 90 days for you to find an additional leader while you're able to benefit from the volume that's happening. So what I love about this is that people can prove themselves. In 90 days, you really see how people are going to show up, how they work, what's their personality. They might be a better fit somewhere in the organization. They may not work well with the person that I did put them under, right? That might not be the best place for them to be. So really seeing what people do in 90 days and using this Premier move to your advantage to kind of test people out. If you already have 3 legs going, I usually recommend that people at least have 3 leaders before they really start utilizing this a ton in their business. And you might disagree with that, but I really love using this outside of that time period. And I have some verbiage, I think, right here that you pulled up. Might be something I would say. I have someone I'd like to place on your team for now. I'm hoping they'll show up as a builder. As they're getting started, this will generate volume for you and give you a jump start as you're working to solidify your other 2 legs. Depending on, and you can fill in whatever criteria that is, we'll reevaluate this scenario in a couple of months to see if this is a mutually beneficial relationship for both of you, or if a move would make more sense. So that's some good verbiage that still maintains, because you never want to sabotage relationships here. So as long as you communicate up front and you do it in a clear way and you follow through with exactly what you said you were going to do, then the relationship is preserved.
I think I love that, and I wish that I had had that in the beginning, because there are people that I actually left in spots to save a relationship that I wish I had moved and had been clear up front, but by the time I was ready to move them, it felt like I would destroy the relationship, so I kept them in their spot. And sometimes you're just going to have to do that, but if you're really clear with people up front, it makes your choice a little bit easier later on. So, the other thing that you can look at is whether or not the sponsor for that Premier has been inactive or decides not to work the business, right? If the sponsor is saying that they don't want to work the business but are not engaged in the building, if the working relationship between the sponsor and the new enrollee is not positive and they would grow best in a different location or with a different leader, or if the person that you place on your front line and support their growth to Premier in 90 days, you may choose to place them somewhere else in a place where they'll grow best. I can't even speak anymore, where they will grow best. So these are all like methods of appropriateness that you can look at as you're deciding whether to make that decision, right?
Yeah, like those are good situations where it's like appropriate for you to move them, where it's not going to damage a relationship.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about the enroller change option. This is when you enroll somebody and now you're going to give enrollment away. We talked earlier about how you want to hold on to it until it's right for all parties. There is a situation where you can change the enrollership one time to someone else. And then if needed, you'll be able to switch it back to the original owner, but not to someone else. So they do give you I can give it away. Like Jessica, I just enrolled somebody underneath of you 6 months ago. I see it's going to help you to your next rank. You've been awesome with them. You've been supporting them. You've been mentoring. You even flew all the way out to wherever to work with them in Diamond Club. And I think you deserve the enrollership. And then Jessica decides 6 months later not to do the business anymore. And she decides that she would like to give that enrollership back so I can work with that person. So that's a perfect example. Do you have anything else, Jess, to say on that?
Nope, I love it. And I think this is really good for people like that change their mind. I mean, it's an ideal place.
Right. So some of the things that you want to look at to see if somebody has, quote unquote, earned that enrollership change are they showing their commitment and support through teaching, mentoring, and travel with that person? Are they helping that person advance in rank? And the other thing you might want to look at is that person who you're thinking about giving enrollership up of, are they potentially growing faster and stronger than the person you were going to give them to? And if that's the case, you might want to think again. Sometimes it feels really good to have your whole front line be your qualifying legs. But sometimes if somebody is going to be way, way, way stronger down below, you may want to hold on to them, right?
Absolutely.
Talked about that earlier. Okay, why don't you talk about the reactivation?
So if anyone in doTERRA has been 6 months inactive, right? They haven't ordered anything, no orders at all through their wholesale account for 6 months of inactivity, they can send an email to placements@doterra.com to reactivate. Now, if they don't place their order right then they don't stay in that spot. So if they're wanting to reactivate, they need to process an order immediately in order to stay in the new reactivated spot.
Exactly. So 6 months is the rule, right? That's the same as if you had somebody on another team that decided that team wasn't a great fit for them anymore. The general rule is 6 months. They can change teams at 6 months, or they can reactivate themselves in your own team and move to a different spot. Okay, then there's the account transfer, which I love and simultaneously hate. This is an opportunity for you to take out somebody who's in a key position, who all of a sudden is going to destroy a rank or a power of 3 because they decided that they don't want to support anyone anymore. And usually it's because they just don't even want to order anymore. And sometimes if that situation happens, you have this builder who no longer wishes to support or sponsor their team or even order themselves, you can actually place a brand new person who's never been enrolled yet. Key terms. You can't swap somebody already on your team, but you can use an account transfer form to bring a brand new person into their spot. Now, the great situation about this, the reason I love it, is that sometimes it will salvage a power of 3 tree if it's already existing or even a rank. The thing that I hate about it is that sometimes this person is coming on board and taking over a team that they did not enroll themselves, have no relationship with, and it often can be a disaster. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I actually had this happen on my front line because I had someone whose husband got very, very sick and she could no longer support or do anything. And, she didn't want that pressure or responsibility anymore. And so I found someone to take that place. Now, one of the key things in this situation was that I set really clear expectations around what that individual would need to do and what criteria they'd need to meet to get into that account transfer spot. And if they didn't meet those, they'd need to be willing to give it up because that was a key area in my organization. Now, these people in particular, this account was probably generating about $600 a month. And these people, the new people, would have never been able to have this opportunity was it not generating that. So it was really a blessing for both sides. And they showed up. It was difficult for them to connect with some of the people, but they used that as a way to get in. And then they rebuilt an entire organization that was their own. So
yeah, and then sometimes the thing to do is just to sacrifice the power of 3 for 6 months, have a spot go inactive, and if there's an amazing rock star underneath, that will eventually roll up. So I know that this is more complicated to some of you who are brand new than you might be ready for. And just remember, you can always re-listen to this webinar or talk to somebody above you that knows more about each of these situations, because chances are if somebody above you is a silver above, they know about all of these. Okay, so now the last thing that we want to talk about is the exception option. And this is like, they used to be, meaning doTERRA, be much more lenient about this, but now that the company is growing, they pretty much deny almost all exceptions. It really has to be an extenuating circumstance, very rare, and it's made on a case-by-case individual basis. So people ask me, well, do you think that this is going to be approved? And I say I have no idea because it's a case-by-case individual basis. Now, sometimes I can say there's no way that's going to be approved because I do know the general criteria that they look at. But some things like a life change, a death, a serious illness, those are things that can serve to request moves. Enroller changes, swaps, terminations, those are rarely approved, and doTERRA will not allow an exception to be made that only contributes to you obtaining a power of 3 or a rank advancement. There really has to be an extenuating circumstance. But now that I've been around for a longer period of time, I don't look at letting a person go inactive as such a bad thing anymore. It used to feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to destroy me. And now I think, okay, I have to wait 6 months. This person's going to go away, and then somebody underneath of them is going to move up. But do know that this exception option is there for those rare circumstances, and you can talk to your upline, your immediate upline, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, or above, about whether we feel like it's a good exception to make. All right, so you guys remember, there's a lot going on here. There's going to be times that you feel like you need help, support, advice, tips, assistance, guidance. You're going to feel like you're running on empty. You're going to feel like you've made bad decisions. You're going to feel like you don't know what to do. You're going to feel like your organization structure completely sucks. And Jessica and I are here to tell you that we all felt the same way, both of us. And so does everyone else. So we want you guys to keep calm. Use me or your immediate upline who is working with you as a peer, as a mentor, as a coach, as support. And don't get frustrated if you don't have the ideal, perfect looking tree, because no one does. Jessica, is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
I just think we need to make sure that we use people that are silver, gold especially, because gold requires a lot of good placement decisions, and above, to help us when we just don't know. Don't be afraid to ask. And after you ask a few times, you're going to get the hang of it. You're going to get the hang of it. So just know that all of us have been there before, and know that no matter what happens, even if your organization's totally screwed up, you can still become a presidential diamond.
Yeah, exactly. Even if your organization is up, you still can be a presidential diamond. Okay, so you guys, Jessica's not on our team, so I know she's got a lot of Facebook messages and emails from her own team. If you guys have questions about placements, please make sure that you're reaching out to your upline, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, whoever that is. And remember that you can always touch base with me if there's not a person there supporting you. So thank you guys for getting on this call today. Thank you so much, Jessica, for getting on. And all of us really appreciate your insight. And you know I love you. And thank you so much.
I love you too. Thanks, Haley, for organizing it.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.